Hello, welcome to Create Good Webinar Wednesdays. Welcome again to everyone for joining Create Good's Webinar Wednesdays. This year in 2020, we are sharing some of the best content from our 2019 conference, all the way leading up to our conference in April. And so I am just so glad that you're here today and that you're giving yourself the time to expand your skill set and knowledge for your own communications, for your nonprofit. And so again, thank you so much for being here today. As I mentioned, Webinar Wednesdays is an extension of the Create Good Conference, which is a national conference that is focused on the nonprofit communications professionals. We bring in communicators from across the country to speak on some of the latest tools and campaigns in nonprofit communications. And personally, I just think it's a really great opportunity for folks to come in and network with others that are in the same field, talk about some of the great things that you all are doing, but also discuss some of the challenges that you might face. But also, also learning about some of the latest communications trends that are happening out there. And so this year, our Create Good conference is taking place in Durham, North Carolina on April 23rd through the 24th. Our tickets are available at the creategoodconference.com website, and you can also take a look at our speaker list and schedule on our site. So I am Michelle Gomez, and I am a content coordinator at BCDC Ideas, which is the communications agency that works exclusively for nonprofits. We host the Create Good conference every year just as an opportunity to give back to nonprofit communicators a chance to get together and to learn something new. And so that's something we always look forward to every year. And so now I'm just going to hand it over to our speaker today, Lexi. Lexi did an amazing job at our 2019 conference, and she was one of our top speakers last year, and her session was just really, really well received. And so we just wanted to share that content again with you all today. So Lexi, I'm going to hand it all over to you.
I'm going to try and keep a monitor on the chat throughout this. Bear with me, this is a bit of a experiment, right? Because you all are online and I'm on video. So we'll see how it goes. I do like to make my talks pretty participatory. I've done a workshop through Instagram Live before, and that was successful through the comments. So I have a feeling today is going to be no different. Let's get started. So want to talk a little bit about the back-end basics, a little bit all around about WordPress. And I'm going to kind of skew this based on what I heard from the conference last year, but in a minute I would love to just kind of get a pulse check on what you all are interested in. Just a bit about me. So again, my name is Lexi Namer. I do a lot of things. I'm a designer and developer foremost. In a previous life, I was a photographer. I do a lot of teaching, and so that's teaching everything from workshops all the way to more traditional college classes at UNC, and then other stuff as well, like at boot camps, right? So people who want to go and be designers or developers and change their careers. So I lost my little Zoom meeting chat. Just want to make sure we can see it. Okay, can everyone see my screen? I'm going to assume yes. I would love to know a little bit about you because I'd like to tailor this based on what you all are interested in. So if you want to just ping off a chat message, how many of you have used WordPress before or currently use WordPress in your company? If so, do you feel very well versed in it? Do you feel like you can make updates? Plugins? Okay, yes. No sense how to make updates, no background knowledge. Yeah, okay. No updates for a couple of years, maybe some updates. All right, great. So this is kind of where I was hoping that we would all be. Not great with plugins, updates. Great, that's what a lot of this is going to talk about. And I'm going to run through some slides pretty quickly, some of the plugins that are my favorite. And then we're going to just go straight into kind of a live demo, and I can talk to you about a few important things, some important WordPress updates. And let's go. obviously WordPress, everyone here should know what it is. It is what is known as a CMS, and I'm going to spell that out in the chat. CMS, or Content Management System. It is actually one of the largest content management systems on the planet. I believe, at least the last stats I checked, about 66% of websites worldwide use WordPress, which means it's very, very powerful. But as I'm sure a lot of you know, it comes with its challenges, right? It's a bit of a steep learning curve. You know, I've been using WordPress for over a decade. I've worked at an agency before where we built custom WordPress websites, and I still feel like I'm just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So let's first talk about a few things. Updates, why are they important? As I mentioned, WordPress is a content management system. It's what's known as open source, which means that it's free for anyone to use, for anyone to manipulate. But with that also comes, you know, the bad side of the internet, where it might not be the most secure, right? People are constantly trying to hack it. Bots are trying to spam you. And so WordPress has updates in two kind of space. I just see that somebody's website has been hacked. Super frustrating. Updates, why are they important, right? Basically, what I would love for you all to get out of here today is just how to simply maintain your website. And feel free to not take notes during this. I have a link at the end where you can download this as a PDF so you can have all these slides if you need to. First thing you're going to want to do, if you don't already, is back up your stuff. I use this awesome plugin called AllinOne WP Migration. Here's a link right here. Basically, you can just download the entire copy of your website. And so that way, if something goes real south while you're making any kind of updates, you have a backup. So I'm going to just show you what this looks like. There are two core parts to your website. There is the core, that is the WordPress theme, right? So if we think about WordPress in itself, there's two versions. There's WordPress.com and WordPress.org. WordPress.org is probably what most of you are using. This is the thing that gives you more flexibility, that lets you use plugins, different themes. It comes with its own like core functionality, and those have updates, right? The consortium that runs WordPress and creates all of these files, similar to like if you would go use to Squarespace, right? The Squarespace team, the Wix team, the WordPress team gets updates. That's the first one you're going to want to update. Next, you're going to want to update your WordPress theme. So the theme is basically the skin that you put on top of your WordPress that gives it kind of its look and feel, right? So your theme might be something called like 2011, or if you work in a nonprofit, your theme might be the Asha theme if you had somebody who developed it for you. Your WordPress theme might also be something that you've paid for. There's so many free themes that are good. There are so many paid themes for like $60 you can set up. First, you're going to want to update your WordPress theme. And then you'd probably like to update all of your plugins one at a time. And we're going to walk through how to do this. I recommend between each of these steps, just check to make sure that nothing has broken. Right? If it does, don't panic because you have this backup, and we'll show you how to navigate that backup. But does this make sense to everyone so far? Any questions so far? With you. Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Okay. Let's see. Address the cache. Okay, Abby, I might need a little more clarification on what cache you're talking about, but yes, I can talk about cache. That is awesome that your IT company does all of this. If you had a company that created your site, should they be doing all of this? Unfortunately, the answer is this depends. A company might build your site and then they just pass it over to you and they will never touch another site. right? They also might have some kind of maintenance package, or you might have an IT department that handles all of this. Typically, if you pay for the hosting yourself at your own company, if you pay for any of the maintenance yourself, you probably are responsible for this. If you have an agency or an outside developer that's managing this, a lot of this is done for you. So let's just talk through this a bit. There's a bit of a lag here, so I've kind of primed this. If you pay hosting to an outside company, they may still not do this. So the way hosting works, okay, is that in order to host a website, you can think of it like renting a parking space, right? You have the big parking lot, that's the internet. Each of these parking spaces have a hosting, right? They each have a little space on a server, somewhere probably on a warehouse, that you're basically leasing either year to year or month to month to put all of your files on the internet. Wordpress.org, which I will show you, and it is not too basic at all, whoever asked the difference between .org and .com. WordPress.org is self-hosted. This means if you purchase hosting from somewhere like GoDaddy, if you use Green Geeks, there are so many different companies, you're probably using WordPress.org. That means that you personally host all of the files onto that rented parking lot. Basically, your hosting company is just renting you that parking space. They have nothing to do, most of the time, with what files are put up there. WordPress.com is another website. It's another entity of WordPress. It locks down a lot of the restrictions. So it gives you a very, very select amount of themes, select amount of plugins, but it also takes away the need for a lot of this maintenance and a lot of this hosting. So WordPress.com can be a great asset if you need something very, very simple. But for a lot of you who are at nonprofits and you need to maybe take donations and have schedules and do some more complex stuff, you'll probably reach the end of its limitation. Make sense, Mira? Okay, so the first thing you can do to see if you have any updates is you are just going to go to the dashboard. Pro tip is that no matter where you go, if your company, your client, whomever uses WordPress, if you go to their URL and type /wp-admin at the end of it, you can get to the login page, right? So once you logged in, you'll go to the dashboard, and on the side right here, it'll show updates. I have not done a great job of maintaining this website, so I do have some updates, okay? So see that I have some updates. Oh, I have an updated version of WordPress that's available. This is going to be my core theme, right? And we're going to talk about the difference between WordPress 5 and WordPress everything before that in a moment. But I see that I have an update to my core theme. That's what I'm going to want to do first, right? But it even says before updating, make sure to back up your database and files. So to do that, I would go to the plugins. I have this great plugin called AllinOne WP Migration. So again, plugins are on the sidebar. I would click Add New, and I would type All-in-One WP right here. And sorry, the chat is blocking the way. All-in-One, and it should be the first thing that pops up. If you did not have the plugin already installed, you would click the Install Now button, and then you would click the Activate button. As you see, it's kind of this grayed out box called Active, so no need to do that. Scared that updating something will mess up other stuff. Is that rational or not rational? No, that is a very, very legitimate concern that I will address once I go through this process. So Kate, please remind me if I fail to get back to that. But again, so do you install all of the all-in-ones listed? No. So every single one of these things on here is a different plugin. Some of these might be by the same company. Some of these might be by completely different companies. This is the one specifically that we're talking about, all-in-one WP migration. It just makes it really easy to back up a site. When you activate and install this plugin, you would click this little button right here on the side, all-in-one migration. You can keep all of this default stuff the same. You would click export, and you can export it in many different ways. I would probably say just export to file, and it's going to run through this whole process of downloading your website. So we'll just let it run for a moment. Actually, we're not, because this might take a while with all of the processes that it's going to do this in the live demo. But essentially right here, it would say it, and then you would get a file, and that is your backup. And please stop. Let me try and refresh the page. Maybe it'll stop doing this. If you ever needed to import your website, you could just go to this import button right here, say something broke, and you were like, oh no, what do we do? You could just go to the import button right here, and you could just drag and drop your file, and it should overturn everything on your website. Somebody is saying something about updating PHP. PHP is the framework or the development language that WordPress runs on top of. That is going to be a much more intensive process. You'll either want to reach out to your hosting company or to an IT person who can help you get that. Unfortunately, you know, as things progress, as spammers get more sophisticated, that's why they have to make all of these updates. PHP, which is a development language, is no different. And so you just want to make sure that you try and keep them as up to date as possible. My email's at the end of this, so I can show you after. Rachel, if you want to reach out directly to me, I'm happy to provide more information. So anyways, first thing I would do is back up my site through all-in-one migration. Step one is done. Okay, next I am going to update the WordPress core. So first thing I'm going to do is just keep my website up in a new tab, right? Typically when I'm working, I will keep the admin side on one tab and the website in another, just so I can kind of compare and contrast. I am going to go to the dashboard and the updates button, and then what I would do is I would just click update now. Typically it'll let you do things automatically if it's not a major version. So the way that WordPress and most plugins do versioning is in like increments of dots, right? So we are on version 5.3.2. Smaller versions are going to be like 5.3.3 or 5.3.4. A lot of you might, if you haven't updated in a while, might have like WordPress 4.1 or 4.2. Just make sure you back up, because there are some considerations to do that we're going to talk about. Again, I would just click update now, and it would go ahead and start updating. Check weekly. I will talk about that in a moment. So Suzanne, bring that back up towards the end if I fail to cover it. So I updated, which I'm not going to do at the moment. I would just check the website, refresh it, make sure that it is still looking the way that it should. Before you all go crazy and update your websites, and then you're like, wait a second, everything broke. Just don't do it yet, right? Because if any of you are running something before version 5.0, you have extra considerations. Again, then I would go one at a time, click the plugin, update the plugin. And then it'll refresh and say it's either worked or not worked. One thing to note when you're updating is that WordPress will automatically do something called maintenance mode, which means if it's doing any backend processes, it kind of takes your website offline for a bit. So if you've ever updated stuff and you've tried to go to the website too soon, you might see like this scary thing where it's just like, your website is in maintenance mode, and it just disappears. Just give it some time. Don't close out of this tab. And when it finishes updating, it'll say disabling maintenance mode. Again, then I would go back to my website, refresh it, check it, make sure it worked, and just do that one at a time. Any questions on this process? Well, we did a live demo. How to tell which version of WordPress you currently have? Yes. If you go to your dashboard, this is kind of the one-stop shop for everything. And you go to the updates page, it will tell you which version of WordPress you are running. So it'll say like you can update to WordPress 2. I thought it used to say what version you were running. Let me see. At a glance, here it is, right in front of my face. Apologies. Thank you very much, Abby. So I have WordPress 5.2.5 running. So now we are going to talk about something called Gutenberg. What the heck is Gutenberg? Why should I care? This is one Gutenberg, but not the one we are going to talk about. Gutenberg was WordPress's big response to trying to modernize and bring their platform into essentially the 21st century, right? They had all these competitors like Squarespace and Wix that had these drag and drop platforms, right? So you could just like drag a text box and put it anywhere. And WordPress didn't have that ability. So last year they released something called Gutenberg, and it was this big overhaul. Essentially the way that they changed Gutenberg, it was such a radical change that there was this big fear, rightfully so, within the WordPress community, that the release of this was going to cause a ton of websites to break. Gutenberg also came at version 5.0. So that's why I said, please pause if you're running something like version 4.9.9, because there is a very good chance that your website will break. This is just, unfortunately, the lay of the land. So if your WordPress website breaks with Gutenberg, eventually, within the next couple of years, there's still support for the old version, but eventually we're all just going to have to like redo websites and port it over into the future. There is a way to limit it though now. So you should still do updates, but we can limit it. There is this amazing plugin called the Classic Editor plugin. And basically this is WordPress's response of saying, hey, I hear you. I know that Gutenberg is causing chaos and anarchy and your WordPress website might shut down. We're going to provide a plugin. We are going to maintain the plugin so that you can keep your website for a little while longer. I believe that the plugin is supposed to last at least for another year. I just heard something, somebody said that happened at their org. They updated WordPress and they had to rebuild it. I'm really sorry. That's super frustrating. It was quite scary for a moment. And they also, fun fact, released Gutenberg officially, like into the core theme to the mass populace at the exact same time as like a lot of WordPress developers were traveling to like the International WordPress Development Conference. So it was really great on a timing part. Oh, Karen, I'm glad. So they said they're much happier with their WordPress site, right? Again, if you're running an old website, if you're using this plugin and relying on it, you're still running an old version. So eventually you probably will want to redo the website. We can do another demo. We're going to talk through what Gutenberg is, how do you see if you have it, how do you mitigate it. I have two websites pulled up here. One is my personal website, which is old. I haven't updated in a very long time. I have just not bothered changing it. And so it breaks when I try and use Gutenberg. I'll just quickly show you what it looks like. This right here. If I go to my themes, appearance and themes, I can see that I'm running a theme called Stanley WP. If you ever see something like this that says something something child. Basically, the way that themes work is that themes have core components baked into it. What some developers will do if they're using an already existing theme is they can create what's known as a child theme, and basically that's just like a skin on top of the regular theme. So it lets you customize it without breaking any of the functionality. That's another talk for another day, but just very high level. If you see something like child, just update both of them. Don't get rid of one because they rely on each other. So I would go to plugins. I would click add new. Believe that Classic Editor is probably going to be the first or second plugin that you see here because it is one of the most popular plugins, rightfully so. Again, if you don't see it, you can just type in Classic Editor and it should appear right here. You would install it, you would activate it, and then you are good to go. So I'm going to go to plugins and just make sure that my Classic Editor plugin is activated, right? You can click the settings button if I wanted to get to edit other settings, but I don't really care. I'm just trying to keep it the same. Again, so the difference is that if you go to your pages, if you go to your posts, you click on a page or you create a new page, does your editor look like this, right? Does it have this top bar? Does it look a little bit like a WordPress document? I mean, a Word doc. It has the sidebar with the different publish options. How many of you or who all is seeing that kind of editor? Yep, I had a hunch. So you're still running the old WordPress. So it is going to be imperative for you to get that, that plugin before you update. Good news is once you have that plugin, it is not going to change your experience at all. If I go to my dashboard, at a glance, you can see that I am running WordPress 4.9. See, as I mentioned, I have not updated my website very much. I could update to 5.0 and it wouldn't cause any problems. But that's the old website. Let me go to this Clean Hands for Haiti site. These are one of my clients and an organization that's very dear to my heart I've been working with. If I go to my plugins, you see that I don't have the Classic Editor, or I have it, but it's not activated. And the reason I did this was because I was building this website around the time that Gutenberg was starting to come out. So I just wanted to make sure that it worked while it was going on. So I just installed it and deactivated it to make sure that it was there. Abby, you asked, can we install that plugin before we update? Yes. So you can install that plugin at any point and it's going to function perfectly. Actually, I would recommend everyone go ahead and install that plugin if you're confused, just because it shouldn't disrupt it at all. Yes, Hannah, if you are an editor, you do not have access to this. An admin is going to have to be able to do this. And the way you can do that is you can click on users and it'll tell you your different role. So as you see, my role is an administrator, so that gives me like full carte blanche access to this. Okay, Sue, you said, why should we update to Gutenberg? Is there a deadline? I'm at version 5.3.2. So you are fine. You are already updated. If you're not having any issues, no worries at all. The reason you should update is the reason we should always update things is because the more outdated something gets, the less secure it is. And the goal of this whole talk, if I didn't say it outright, is we're just trying to make sure that everything is secure as possible because as somebody mentioned, like, we don't want to get hacked. We don't want Russian bots taking over our websites. It's super horrible. Lindsay, yeah, you mentioned your site was hacked. I'm gonna show y'all a tool at the end of this that kind of helps updating stuff and it makes it like super painless to update. Again, what Gutenberg looks like, right? This is running Gutenberg, aka 5.0 or up. Yes, Kate, if you were at 4.9.9, you don't need Classic Editor until you upgrade to 5. Yeah, exactly. But I would go ahead and install it before you upgrade, so that way nothing gets shifted prior. If you add a page, you're going to see that it looks a little different. Welcome to Gutenberg. This is the new kind of standard. If you're running 5.0, I'll kind of walk you through some of the basic settings just so you can see. Here's the title, test. Now it uses something called blocks, and this is kind of its drag and drop thing. So you're not just limited to like one long text field, you can actually do some pretty cool stuff. So if I clicked this plus button, I can add a paragraph and just start typing. And then I can add another block. I could add a pull quote, or I could add an image. And again, it depends on your theme, what kind of styles are baked in and how this will look. But I can add an image. I'm going to go to my media library. I'm going to find, let's use these cute kids here. Very, very cool, because now I can say, oh, do I want the wide version? Do I want the full width version? Right aligned, left aligned, center aligned. It just gives you a lot more options. Again, once you have a few blocks, you can just take these little 3 dots right here and you can rearrange stuff, right? So I could just rearrange stuff. I could preview it. The sidebar here, if you click on the document, this is where you'll find some of your old stuff like featured images, the paid attributes, which has your templates if you're using those. Do you want to allow comments? Do you want to make it public? The block is what gives you the settings for each of these. Quick tip, one of the easiest ways you can be 501, or not 501c3, you can be 504 compliant and you can make your website accessible, is just adding an alternate text, so anyone who's running through your website with a screen reader has something to grab onto and they don't just see a blank box. Just a tip, you should add it to all your images anyway. Does that answer kind of the basics of how Gutenberg works? Somebody using Avada and Fusion Builder. Does Gutenberg still apply? In terms of updating, yes, it does. If you're using some kind of page builder. So for example, this website actually uses a page builder called Beaver Builder. It's very similar to Avada, or there's so many other ones. Hopefully, it's a good enough page builder that it has kind of future-proofed itself and it's updated its stuff so that it works with Gutenberg. So you might not ever even encounter that Gutenberg editor I just showed you. But in terms of the updates, you should still make updates, especially to your builders. Builders are great. They're a great way to let people make complex stuff. So that's Beaver Builder. And that is Gutenberg. Let's talk about just like some tips and tricks, even if you're not very design savvy. So here are plugins that I adore. Besides the all-in-one, besides the classic editor, these are some of the plugins that I use constantly. Smush is an image compressor, and you would install these the same way that we talked about installing the others. Basically, every time you import an image, it'll automatically shrink it down to be the most optimal size. And that way it saves space. It makes it quicker to load. Akismet is one of the best plugins. This is actually the first thing I do when I'm starting a new website, is I install this plugin called Akismet. It helps protect it from spam and bots. Basically what you have to do if you don't already have a key is it'll just walk you through a series of steps. You can do a free version or a paid version, and you would insert your little key right here, and then it just automatically does its magic and protects you. Total cache. Somebody asked about caching, right? Was there a specific question, Abby, about caching, or just in general you want to talk about it? You have to manually delete the cache. Yes. So you might still have to do that, but total cache is amazing. I will show you exactly what it does. Essentially, let's get an actual definition of what a cache is. Basically, in computing, a cache is a component that stores data so that you can serve it faster. One of WordPress's pitfalls is that it's notorious for having like a slow caching lag, which means that it stores a ton of stuff. So anytime you make changes, you might have to go to like a private browser or clear your cookies for it to show up. And it's a huge pain in the butt, especially if you're trying to make a lot of changes. There are a lot of caching tools that are really great. My favorite is Total Cache. And so how you install it is I would go here, I would type in Total Cache. There's also Fastest Cache is another great one. So you can use either of them. Basically, you would install it. Hopefully it's not going to take very long because I'll show you how to use it. Updated your plugins, add a new menu bar, and now the menu bar disappeared. Has that happened? If something changes like radically glitchy, it might be because of an update. The best thing you could probably do is try and disable or deactivate your plugins one by one, and then refresh your website to see if there's a problem. So a lot of times a plugin update might cause a conflict. I think that was another question, is like being scared to update because it might break something. Yeah, that's why A, you want to make a backup. B, and if you want to be like super secure and make sure that nothing happens, just take note of what version you're running before you update. And that way, if you figure out that a plugin is breaking it, you can always go Google it typically, and you can get an older version of the plugin. But so what I would do in that case, Samantha, is I would just like click deactivate on this one, refresh my website. Does it come back? Okay, reactivate it. Click deactivate on the second one, refresh my website, etc. So total cache, I would click activate, and then this magical little performance bar is up here. Anytime now that I want to see my changes, anytime I want to clear the cache, all I would have to do is just say purge all caches. So Abby, that should help you do it as well. It might still be a pain, right? So if it's some cache that's not necessarily on the WordPress side, but is on like the computer or the browser side or your Chrome side, you might still have to go to like incognito mode, which is the best way to see if it's taking place. That's total cache. Yep, Abby, I know, super annoying. One thing you can do is just always work in incognito mode, so that way you don't have to constantly click that button every time you make a change. And then once you know that it's working right, then you can just go and clear the cache one time. That's what I typically do, like 90% of the time. Give is a phenomenal plugin. There are various versions of Give. I'm using Give right now to collect donations. I'm using the free version on this website. It's phenomenal for nonprofits. You can hook it up to, I think, PayPal for free, different things. It gives you a lot of customization, right? So you can create entire forms for donations. You can see, you can embed them in different places. It's a really, really, really amazing plugin. So if I go to Clean Hands for Haiti, this is using Give. That's a form. Down here, if I go to the contribute page, each of these, this is a Give form, this is a Give form, and it's free, right? And it's just running directly into their PayPal account the second somebody donates. I believe, Sue, you asked, does Give integrate with WooCommerce? For those who don't know, WooCommerce is a shopping platform. It's probably the top shopping platform for WordPress. It's why a lot of people use WordPress. It's a really great way to have like an online store. I believe that Give should have some kind of WooCommerce integration. You probably have to pay for that extension. So like most things, there's the free version, which gives you some things, and then there's the not free version. I've used the Give paid version though to like hook it up to an account that was not supported by free, and I highly recommend. Here are two others, just if you want to add your, newsletter sign up to your website. MailChimp and Constant Contact are the two most popular one. WordPress plugins, so that you can just add a sign up right there. You can hook it up to your MailChimp account, and the names will automatically get populated. It's a good way to build the roster. And then finally, in case any of you are adventurous and want to try and play with CSS or want to try and manipulate the styles of your website, what you can do is if you go to the Customize button, you can also find the Customizer, which typically has its theme options on the Customizer. If you're new to WordPress and you don't know, like, how do you make changes to this theme? If you go to Appearance and then Customize, this is where a lot of the theme settings are going to be. Most themes will now have this additional CSS button, and so you could just start typing. You could play around. I could change the color to red. And that way you don't have to worry about touching scary files, but you can just add it right in here and publish it. If you ever go to Appearance, I actually even have it locked, but sometimes you'll go to Appearance and there's like an editor option that will actually show you like the theme files. Don't change anything in here if you don't know what you're doing, because there's no way to undo it. So again, no reason to change anything here. Use the built-in CSS editor. So if you're feeling, Mira, CSS, okay, thank you. So front-end websites, crash course in web development. There's front-end, which is everything the user sees, right? This is all of the content. This is all of the styles, the colors, etc. The back end is PHP. That's what WordPress is running on. That makes all the forms go, all the magic happen, the pages connect. Front-end development is built out of three things: HTML, or hypertext markup language, which is literally how you get the text onto the page. Think of it as like the skeleton or the foundation to your house. Then you have CSS, which is cascading style sheets. This is like adding the paint, right, to the walls. Okay, so this is what's going to give it its style. It's going to be its fonts, its colors, its layout, everything. And then your JavaScript or JS is the third part of front-end development. And think of this as like the interactivity. So this is your doorbell. This is your thermostat. This is what's making all of the pieces connect together and do it seamlessly and interactively. That answer your question, Mira? And good job, Lindsay. So we have run through quite a bit. I feel like there were a couple of questions I did not get to. So what questions do you have for me? Somebody says, Gutenberg looks pretty simplistic. We have like 30 different modules to choose from. You were the one using Aveda or one of the other builders, right? If so, the builders are always going to be more powerful. They're going to give you a lot more different posts. So yeah, the Beaver builders and the Avedas are going to give you a lot more functionality. And it's usually paid though, unfortunately, but yeah, Gutenberg is simplistic, but it's trying and it's better than it was. Where did I start learning all I knew? I guess I skimmed pretty quickly over my background. is that I started my career off doing freelance photography, doing everything from nonprofit work, corporate clients, and, you know, weddings to music festivals to dance companies, a little bit of everything. And my nonprofit clients, actually, a lot of them had very, very old websites that were still running on Flash. And this was kind of at the tail end of when Flash started to break and mobile, you know, internet started to come. And so they would be like, hey, can you redesign this website? And I was like, I've poked around in WordPress. I know design. Let me do it. I need money. And, you know, 22 years old and I live in New York City. So I taught myself that way and just basically just doing a lot of Googling. And, you know, I remember the first website I built, I charged $400 for it. And I remember literally spending 30 hours straight trying to embed an audio file that would now take me probably 20 minutes. So if you're interested in all this stuff, stick with it. That's me. So let's see, if you're thinking about changing themes, is there a way to slowly work on it and build a new theme? Abby, yes, there is. It's a little more complex. What you would probably want to do is create a subdirectory on your hosting account. So that way you can start building it before you have to port everything over without making everything scary. Another good WordPress plugin, if you are trying to make a lot of updates, is you can use something like a maintenance plugin, so that way you're not seeing the work in progress. So basically it'll shut your site offline and you can set up like a pretty splash page. There's maintenance, there's coming soon. Basically just like lets everyone who comes to your website that's not logged in see that it's under construction. So how often should you check everything? I would say weekly is a great habit. If this is your main job, and not your main job to do this, but if this is, you know, the job that you're spending 40 hours a week, it takes about 5 minutes just to go through here and just check and make sure everything is great. Weekly is awesome. Monthly, probably at a minimum. You can set an alarm to it. I said I would show you this phenomenal tool to help you keep your websites updated, but now I cannot remember what it's called. If I find that, I will make sure to let you know. What is that website called? Let me see. Manage WordPress updates. Let's see if I can find. There's a tool, I have used it. Manage WP. This is a great tool to use. There's a free account and a paid account. Basically, this lets you manage all of your WordPress websites. Let's see if I can remember my login or if it's still working. Basically, what you can do is you can hook up all of your different websites to this dashboard, and you can just quickly see what needs to be updated. And for most of the time, you can actually update it directly from this dashboard. There's also an option to do backups. So you can do backups of your website straight from here. So it's a great, great, great tool, especially if you might have multiple websites. When I was actually more diligent about updating, I would just set an alarm on my calendar. Somebody says broken link checker. Ooh, is that a plugin? Guru Karm? Yes, okay, so let's go find the plugin. Apparently there's a plugin called Broken Link Checker that's super, super helpful for giving you notifications when your website goes, when links go. So if you're somebody who has tons of links and cross links, this might be a good check. Thank you very much. Bonnie, you asked if there's any concern if you're using the free.com account. Much less concern. I honestly haven't used the free.com account in a while, so I don't know if they automatically do the updates. Worth checking, but I have a feeling it's a lot less intensive than this. Kate, you hate your theme. Some company created it. It probably limits a lot of what you can do. Yeah, you can definitely get Beaver Builder and start working on a new one behind the scenes. So yeah, Beaver Builder is a paid plugin, but it is wonderful. It's my favorite of the builders personally, just because I find that it's the most flexible and the most easy to use. So once you figure out how to get your new install set up, your new kind of sandbox or work in progress site, you could go ahead and start working Beaver Builder. You could actually go ahead and get Beaver Builder on your current website, and it's not going to actually break your pages until you tell it to update it. Thank you, whoever shared broken link checker. It seems like this is a huge hit, and I'm going to add it to this presentation from now. You have taught me a lot. So,
all right.
that is what I have for you.
So it's Michelle just checking in. We have a few more minutes left. If you have any more additional questions, feel free to go ahead and ask Lexi.
Yeah. Again, here's some info. You can get, if you go to bit.ly/WPBackend19, you can download these slides so you can get the links. Has my contact info in there. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much, Lexi. Like I mentioned early on, we do have a live recording of this webinar, so we'll be also posting that up online. And once it's ready to go, we'll share that with everyone else. So thank you so much, Lexi.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking your time. Samantha, you asked what race I was training for. Is there something in my background, or was there something about running on here, or do I know you from somewhere? My browser. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I ran a marathon in November. I'm a big runner. So I'm not actually training for anything at the moment. But if anyone's a runner, the Fleet Feet running programs are super, super fun. You can come hang out with me.
Okay. All right.
Have a great day, everyone.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.